Well, hello lovely humans, and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, hey, my name is Jamie Wolfer. I'm a wedding planner based in Central Texas, and I love slinging wedding planning tips, especially for those of us that are balling on a budget. Because honestly, sometimes I feel like the wedding industry is like really not out to serve anyone who's spending less than $50,000, so I'd love to remedy that here. That's what we're working on. Now, one of the things that I am obsessed with / known for is budget tips. In fact, it's been a hot minute since I have done any sort of budget tip related video. I think it's probably been about 3 years since I gave a bunch of tips, but there are a consistent 5 that I always come back to. Like my 5 favorite budget saving tips, the ones that are tried and true, the ones that if you try them, if you implement these, you are guaranteed to save money. Guaranteed. That's not a real word, but we're rolling with it. It's okay. We're just gonna keep on going. These are absolutely, if you implement one, you will save money. If you implement all 5, you will save even more money. You can pick and choose what applies to you. You don't have to do all of them. And just as like a quick disclaimer, these are gonna be repeated from other things I've said on this channel. So if you're like, Jamie, I've heard you say that before, good, you're a great student of this channel. You've been listening, you've been paying attention. And here is your gold star. Thank you for being here. But there's a reason I wanna highlight these specifically because they are always bomb.com. And at the very end, we're gonna talk about my favorite tip. And this is one I don't think I've ever shared. Never. Well, kind of, but like in a different, you'll see when we get there. So without further ado, let's just jump right on into it. First budget saving tip, skip all inclusive. Now, this is obviously a matter of like how much time you have versus how much money you want to spend, but we're focusing on saving money at this point, okay? So if we're skipping all inclusive, that may require more time from you. I've done a whole video, I think, on the difference between the two, and I'll go ahead and link that up here. Going with an all-inclusive venue / event space means that you'll likely have catering, bartending, and rentals all worked into one cost. While that is a time-saving option, that completely removes the ability for you to hunt around to find the most cost-effective option for you. You are locked in to their catering service, which I'm sure tastes bomb, but also could be like a minimum of $65 per person. So before you even start hunting, before you even start looking around, be sure that you are looking at venues that allow you to bring in outside vendors. And if they have a preferred list of vendors, make sure you look into the cost of their caterers, their bartenders, their rental companies that they prefer and or require that you use before you sign on for the venue. So skip all inclusive, like we're not going down that road, we're not taking that journey if we're trying to save money. And in addition to that, if you are trying to save money, be sure to go through that preferred vendors list and confirm whether or not you are allowed to bring in other people. Now, some places may say, yes, but they have to come do a walkthrough first, or yes, but they have to pay, it's an additional $500 fee because we've never worked with them before, or we're gonna need 3 recommendations from other venues that they've worked with. These are all things that we have come across before. And that's the venue's way of protecting themselves from working with someone who might royally screw this up because they don't have a history with them. You want to ask these questions before you book your venue because you don't want to get yourself in a position where all of a sudden you're still going to pay $65 per person for catering, or you're going to have to pay an additional $250 or $500 because you're bringing in somebody new that you found that was less expensive, but then with that added cost now makes them less expensive. Double negatives are great. Which brings us to budget saving tip number 2, catering. Catering can be this wide range. In fact, we do Q&A Monday usually on over on Instagram, and I do get asked quite often, like, what's the average cost of catering? And it's like, well, it could be $300 a plate, or it could be $13. I don't know. There's a ton of different options here. So I'll point to another, like, all the different styles of catering. That's this video right here. But there is a very, very wide range of what you can be spending on catering. Like just a massive range. So in order to be as cost effective with this as possible, we've already found the right venue that's gonna allow you to bring in your own caterer, or it's going to be cost effective enough to use maybe somebody from their list. It's not gonna be this big all-inclusive situation that you are locked into that cost. So secondary to that is getting creative with this catering. So that's where I recommend trying to do something like the cheapest that you can do is either a food truck or drop catering. I know I explained them in that video that I just linked half a minute ago or whatever, but I'll do a brief dip into them right here. Drop catering is literally what it sounds like someone just drops it off. That's it. So you can go to a local restaurant, you can go to Chick-fil-A, I don't know if they actually physically deliver, but you can have the food made by something that's not typically a wedding catering service, and it's just a drop catering service, which is absolutely fantastic. The only downside to this option is bussing tables tends to be a little bit chaotic. So you need to have a plan of attack for that, specifically because you don't have a catering service. And before you tell me, oh, don't worry, my family and friends, they'll get it. Just double check, just make sure you've communicated that to them, okay? Secondary to that is a food truck. A food truck is a fantastic option to be a cost saver for your wedding day, simply because all of their catering equipment is contained in a mobile unit. So they don't have to make a kitchen from scratch, which some caterers do have to do at some venues, which gets cha-ching, if you know what I mean. So to hire a food truck instead, you're not paying for a full kitchen to be set up. You can also have them limit their menu options down to 2, perhaps 3 items, so it's not taking absolutely forever. Now, whenever you don't hire a professional wedding catering service, you do run the risk of catering taking longer. So be sure, if you are going this route, it is a money-saving option, most assuredly, but make sure you ask them how long it will take to serve 150 people, because you do not want it to take 3 hours, because that last person is going to be ticked. They're going to be so hangry, it's not even funny, or they're going to leave. So make sure you confirm, hey, I know this isn't your usual MO, and that's okay, but we're anticipating this many people. If we limit the food options down to 2 or 3, how long do you think it's going to take to serve this amount of people? And the answer that we're looking for is ideally an hour and a half or less. Most of the time we see 45 minutes to an hour tends to be the sweet spot for around 150 people. So if they're like, oh, it's going to be 2.5 hours, that's a hard no from me, dog, all right? Guaranteed to save money with one of those 2 options. You need to come up with whoever is transporting your drop catering and who's going to clean up afterwards. And you also need to figure out how long the food truck could take, and again, who's cleaning up afterwards for that. But those are guaranteed to save you money. Guaranteed. It's going to require a little bit more brain work and scheduling and organizing, but you're going to save some green. And this next one is not a surprise. We talk about it all the time. I'm hoping that half of you are predicting what's about to come out of my mouth. And that is the bar. You can totally save money on the bar, friends. I highly suggest that you stick to beer and wine only. That's it. And you can do 2 options for wine and maybe 2 or 3 options for beer. It is not a requirement that you get extra fancy when it comes to the bar. You can do a cash bar. That is a cultural thing. Whether or not that works with your family, friends, and your own conscience, that's up to you guys. That is a good cost-saving option for sure. But if you're choosing to have an open bar, skip the hard alcohol. It is usually very frowned upon at weddings to offer shots of any kind. If we're working with a professional bartending service, they don't offer shots. They only offer some sort of mixed beverage to go along with that. In fact, some of them won't even serve it neat, because that's just a really quick way to get to sloppyville. But if you have hard alcohol, you will likely need mixers to go along with it. If you're doing a full open bar, that's a bajillion mixers and toppings and different styles of glasses that they need to be served in. That gets really complicated to DIY yourself. And remember, we're not talking about making it a bougie experience. We're talking about making it a great experience for your family and friends and guests to enjoy themselves while you still get to keep money in your pocket. Because weddings are awesome, but so is buying a house, right? Right. And then when it comes to the non-alcoholic options, be sure to limit that as well. Now, if you do want to offer sodas, I recommend that you go for cans if possible. And of course, having some sort of recycling system set up would be primo. But if you have cans, and this goes for beer as well, in cans or in bottles, you don't have to get cups to pour them into. So there's like layers for why this is a great budget saving option, because you're not getting extra vessels to pour stuff into. So just anything that we can do to shave some of this off is fantastic. But of course, cutting sodas would make it even cheaper, and then I would recommend just getting 3 dispensers if possible. 1 for water, 1 for iced tea, and 1 for lemonade. You can drop the iced tea. This is again a very cultural thing. Or you can have unsweetened and sweet tea. I live in Texas now, gotta call that out. I'm a big sweet tea fan. Budget saving tip number 4. We talked about this recently in negotiating with your vendors. How do you negotiate properly? What should you be asking for? How do you handle these negotiations to be respectful about it but still save you money? We like all these words, right? And one of the things that I discussed in that video, or in those videos, was to pick a non-Saturday. Does this make it inconvenient for some of your guests? Yes. Yes, it does. I am completely aware of that. But you have a choice to make. Do you want to spend more money to make it more convenient to have everyone join you on a Saturday? Or are your finances limited? Or do you simply not want to spend that amount of money? Choosing a Friday or a Sunday wedding will potentially cut down on your guest list. And I know for some people that's like, oh, that sounds really sad. And for other people, they're like, guests are really expensive, which I will tell you, your number 1 budget killer. You really want to figure out how to shave off some cash. you're gonna go watch this video. Okay? Spoiler alert, it's your guest count. But that one becomes more emotional, so typically I let people figure out what they want to do with their own guest count, but that video explains really well why having a higher guest count is automatically going to cost you more money. But I wanted a big wedding. I wanted a big bridal party, so I'm definitely not one to pass judgment on that, but the less people you invite, the more money you save. I recognize we're kind of tangenting a little bit, but all that to say, if you happen to book a wedding on a Friday or on a Sunday and less guests come, not only have you saved on the venue and potentially on some of your vendors by negotiating properly with them, but you've also saved on those who were unable to make it. This is not meant to be cruel. This is just meant to look at the facts. If less people come, you are spending less money, and that's an emotional choice you will need to make on your own. It's okay. You're allowed to feel feelings and stuff. We're just talking about the facts and the logic behind it. And the final budget saving tip, the one that I don't know if I've ever explained in this manner, are the 3 B's, okay? Buy, borrow, and barter. Now, the number one mistake that I made with planning my wedding was I bought too much, I DIY'd way too much. Make sure you exercise caution with this one because you don't want to overdo it. You don't want to make sure you have too much DIY on your plate. I like to go by the 40-60 rule. Y'all have heard me talk about this before. 40%, 40% maximum DIY. The other 60%, I highly recommend that you have done by professionals or just not you. Not something you have to manage or organize or get into all the details of, just not you. So take all this with a grain of salt because you definitely don't want to overbuy or overdo. But if you are strategic enough about this and you buy items for your wedding and you're willing to sell them afterwards, or you are committed to selling them afterwards, which is not something I was effective at, you will have obviously spent overall less money, but more time to make this happen. I would just say don't buy tablecloths. Just don't. Because they'll take forever to iron and you will literally hate yourself after. Yes, they are cheaper than renting, but just rent the tablecloth, right? Borrow. Now, I've heard this a couple times. My cousin's willing to let me borrow her stuff. My best friend is getting married a couple months before me and offered some of her stuff to me. I don't know if that's going to be tacky or if people will notice. $10 says 98% of them will have no idea. If you have the opportunity to borrow something for your event that you like, that you feel fits in with the overall aesthetic, do it. Anything that you do not have to buy for yourself, but you can borrow and then maybe pass on to someone else or give back to that friend or that family member that's letting you borrow those things, that is a great way of saving money for your event. So often the wedding industry tells you that everything you have to have for your wedding should be brand new, or you should have sourced yourself, or you should create yourself. And we very often don't look at the opportunity of borrowing. If you are in a Facebook group, which I highly recommend that you go ahead and join ours, it's such an incredible budget-focused wedding group. I'm going to link that down below. There is absolutely no shame in using someone else's items for your wedding day. So if you want to save money, I highly recommend that you explore that option. Now remember, when I say buy, it doesn't have to be brand new too. You can definitely buy used and that will be a lot cheaper. I've also seen people borrow stuff like china and flatware from family members to crowdsource that instead of renting those items. It makes for a little bit more work and a lot more cleaning, but for some, time is definitely cheaper than money. Last one's bartering services. Now this is not for everybody. It's not for every personality. It's not going to work for everyone. You may not have any services that you can barter, but if you do, you should do it. So if you're a graphic designer, potentially you can negotiate some sort of rebrand for your photographer. So if the monetary value of the services balance out, neither one of you is spending a penny, but both of you are getting what you want out of this situation. Now obviously that's a super specific one, but if you get creative with this, there are opportunities for you to figure out how to save even more money by offering your time and your services instead. And that's kind of why I lumped those last 3 into one, because while all 3 may not apply to you, at least one of them can. So that's what we have for this week's video, guys. Thank you so much for stopping by. Tell me which one is your favorite budget saving tip down below, or if I missed it, if you have an excellent budget saving tip that you want to share with the community, drop it on down there. The comment section is always so full of gold on videos like this because you guys are just all sharing with each other, and I absolutely stinking love it. And of course, be sure to join our budget community over on Facebook. We'd love to have you. We'd love to support you, and we'd love to make you feel like you are not alone in this. Let's save some dough, friend, and get you hitched. If you haven't done so already, like this video if you like budget tip saving videos, and subscribe to this channel for more tips and tricks for the modern day bride. And until next week, bye guys!